Okay, so let's dive in. You know that feeling, right? AI is suddenly like this amazing creative buddy. It helps you write, brainstorm, maybe even whip up some images. It's pretty exciting
Oh,
stuff.
definitely. There's a real buzz around it.
But what if rushing into this whole AI world, especially with these large language models,
Hmm.
the ones trained on tons of text, what if there are some like serious hidden catches we're not really stopping to think about?
Hmm.
That's what we're digging into today, based on this really thought-provoking piece from muckypaws.com.
Right. And look, you probably already messed around with AI, seen the cool stuff it can do. We all have.
Yeah, absolutely.
But today, our mission for everyone listening is to kind of peel back a layer or two, explore some of the, let's say, less shiny aspects that this article brings up.
Okay.
We're talking about the financial pressures behind the scenes, how our privacy might be quietly, eroding. The whole idea of our emotions becoming, well, monetizable data. And interestingly, why someone like George Orwell's warnings might feel surprisingly relevant right now.
Wow, okay. Heavy stuff.
Yeah, but we'll also touch on, what we can actually do. It's not all doom and gloom.
Good. Okay, so where do we start? The article mentions the cost, right? The sheer cost of running these things.
Exactly. That's a great starting point because we see these tools. Many seem free or pretty low cost.
Yeah, you sign up, maybe pay a small subscription.
Right. But the article points out that companies like OpenAI, the big players, they're actually spending way, way more money running these things than they're currently making. They're operating at a loss, a significant one.
So how does that work? Who's footing the bill?
Well, massive investments, billions are being poured in, but those investors aren't doing it out of, kindness.
Right, they expect a return.
Precisely. The bet is that we, the users, will get so used to these tools, so reliant on them.
Like we are with search engines or social media.
Exactly like that. That once we're hooked, once it's indispensable, then they can figure out how to really make money. It's a classic strategy, really. Build the dependency first.
And we've seen how that plays out, haven't we? Social media started as just connecting people.
Yep. Pure connection, few ads. Now,
Well, it's wall-to-wall ads and sponsored content.
And the article suggests we should probably expect a similar trajectory for AI. The sheer cost of the computing power for every single query, every generated sentence, it's enormous. That can't be sustained forever just on goodwill and basic subscriptions. Eventually, the investors will demand profitability, real profitability.
Okay, so the money pressure is there. That makes sense. What about the privacy angle? That feels like a big one. The article mentions LLMs having long memories. What does that actually, mean for us?
Yeah, that's a crucial piece. These models have processed just unimaginable amounts of text data to learn. And the information we feed them, well, it potentially adds to that knowledge base in some way.
But don't they say they don't train on user prompts or at least give you an opt-out?
They do say that, yes. Companies often state they don't use your specific conversations to train their core models without consent. But, and this is a big but, these AI models are being integrated everywhere, into third-party apps, into workplace tools, into platforms where the data policies might be, well, less clear, less transparent.
Okay.
And think about what people are putting in. The article lists some really stark examples. We're not just asking for poems. People are inputting draft legal contracts,
Wow.
personal medical information, sensitive financial breakdowns, details for legal cases, because the AI feels helpful. It feels safe, like a private assistant.
Right, it doesn't judge, it just helps.
Exactly. But the concern is, where does that data ultimately end up? Even if it's not used for direct training today, could it leak? Could it be accessed? Could policies change tomorrow?
The article had that hypothetical example, right? About details from a confidential legal case somehow showing up in like a fictional story generated by the AI later.
Yeah, and while that might sound a bit sci-fi, it highlights the underlying risk. When you aggregate that much data, bits and pieces can potentially resurface in unexpected contexts, especially as models evolve or if data handling isn't perfect.
And it's not just individuals. You mentioned workplace tools, professionals, lawyers, consultants. They're using AI.
They are, increasingly, for efficiency, for drafting, for research. But the article flags this as a major risk area. It mentioned a specific case, the Hill Dickinson law firm.
Oh, yeah, I read that bit.
They had to clamp down on AI use because employees were apparently uploading sensitive client documents without realizing the potential implications, without proper authorization.
Yikes. So one person uploads one file.
And potentially exposes all sorts of things. Personal data, confidential client strategies, maybe even stuff that was supposed to be redacted, but the AI could piece back together. Commercial secrets.
Okay, that's worrying. And the idea that the stuff could then pop up later for some random user?
That's the really unsettling part the article stresses. Once it's ingested, once it's potentially part of that vast data set, it could theoretically inform a response to someone else down the line. Your private detail, maybe slightly rephrased, could appear in their output.
Man. Okay, so we have the cost pressure pushing towards monetization, and we have this sort of creeping privacy erosion. How do those connect?
Well, the article paints this picture of the current AI experience as a kind of digital utopia, right? Clean interface, no ads, just you and the helpful AI.
Yeah, it feels quite pure almost.
But it argues that's likely temporary,
Yeah.
driven by that need for profit we talked about.
So ads are coming.
Probably more sophisticated than just banner ads.
Right.
The article predicts a shift. Right now, AI mostly tries to serve your needs, give you the answer, write the code, etc. The prediction is it will shift towards shaping your needs, influencing your choices. Think sponsored product recommendations woven into the conversation, nudges towards particular services based on what you're asking about. Maybe the AI's helpful advice starts subtly steering you towards partners or affiliated products.
Ah, like how search results aren't always purely organic anymore. There's paid placement.
Exactly that parallel.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily be malicious, but the AI's responses could be shaped by commercial partnerships, by financial incentives, not just by giving you the objectively best information. Shareholder demands start to outweigh user needs.
Which means organizations really need to train their people on using this stuff responsibly.
Absolutely critical. Awareness is key there.
Okay, this next point the article raises feels particularly personal. The monetization of empathy, emotional data. What's that about?
This one really gave me pause. It points out that because AI can feel so patient, so non-judgmental,
Yeah, like we said, it just listens.
people are sharing incredibly sensitive personal things they might not even tell a therapist or a close friend. The article lists things like processing grief, talking through trauma, divorce details, health worries, deep anxieties, unspoken thoughts.
Wow. That's a lot of raw human stuff going into the machine.
Yes. And the article's argument is that this deeply emotional data becomes extraordinarily valuable when the profit motive kicks in fully.
Valuable how?
If an AI understands your emotional state, your vulnerabilities, your deepest fears or desires, that's incredibly powerful for targeted influence.
So, give me an example.
Well, imagine feeling down and talking to an AI about it. Suddenly you get recommendations for products pitched as mood boosters. Or if you express indecision about a purchase, the AI, sensing that, pushes you towards a specific option based on a sales partnership. It could analyze your fears to tailor a sales pitch just for you.
That feels manipulative.
It could certainly be used that way. And the crucial point the article makes is, this isn't the AI deciding to be manipulative. It's the humans programming the system, the owners setting the priorities, optimizing for revenue, potentially at the expense of the user's well-being or autonomy.
It's a potential betrayal of that trust people place in it when they share those deep feelings.
A huge potential betrayal. You confide in something that feels safe, but its underlying purpose might become extracting value from your vulnerability.
Okay, so this data, emotional, contextual, professional. It's not just for ads then. The article talks about predictive power.
Right. It goes beyond just selling you something now. The collection of all this data allows for building profiles and making predictions about future behavior or states.
Which sounds useful, maybe, but also potentially dangerous.
That's the double-edged sword. The article gives some chillingly plausible examples of who might be interested in these predictions.
Like who?
Think insurance companies getting insights into your stress levels or likelihood of making a claim based on your interactions. Financial institutions assessing loan risk based on perceived financial anxieties you express to an AI. Recruiters looking for subtle signs that you might be unhappy in your job. Even healthcare providers trying to gauge emotional stability.
Hold on. So you're saying I could chat with an AI about feeling stressed about money, and that could somehow lead to me being denied a mortgage down the line, or my insurance premiums going up.
That's the kind of dystopian but entirely possible scenario the article lays out. It's not science fiction. It's a potential consequence of feeding deeply personal data into systems designed for prediction and profiling, especially when commercial interests are involved.
That feels, yeah, that word again, Orwellian.
And the article explicitly makes that connection. It notes that while Orwell's 1984 envisioned, state surveillance via telescreens.
Big Brother is watching you.
Right. But now, in a strange twist, we're kind of inviting the surveillance in through our phones, our smart speakers, our AI assistants. It mentions Amazon's decision, apparently set for 2025, to stop local voice processing on Alexa devices and send all recordings to the cloud for AI training.
Right. Really? All of them?
That's what the article reports.
Yeah.
So those background conversations, the private moments happening near the device, they become data, fuel for the AI. Not necessarily to harm you directly, maybe, but certainly collected for the company's benefit, not primarily for your protection.
And that brings up that fundamental question the article asks. Just because the tech can listen, should it?
Exactly. Where do we draw the line?
So, given all this, the costs, the privacy risks, the emotional manipulation potential, the surveillance, what can we actually do? The article acknowledges most people aren't going to stop using AI, right? Or read those massive terms and conditions documents.
Yeah, it's realistic about that. And it points out, quite rightly, that most T&Cs are written to protect the company, not really empower the user. Clicking accept often feels like you have no choice if you want to use the service.
Feels like it. So are we just stuck?
No, not entirely. The article ends on a note of agency, which I think is important. We're not powerless.
Okay, so what's the advice?
Awareness is number one. Just understanding these dynamics we've talked about is a huge first step.
Right, knowing what could be happening.
Beyond that, it suggests creating friction. Don't just accept default settings. Question them. Look for opt-outs, even if they're buried. Be more mindful about what you share and where. Push back a bit. Ask uncomfortable questions about how your data is being used and reused.
So be a slightly more difficult user, basically.
In a way, yes. Demand more transparency. And for anyone listening who might actually be involved in building this stuff, the article poses a really crucial challenge. Think about the kind of future you're actually creating. What are the ethical guardrails? Is profit the only metric?
That's a big responsibility.
It is. And the final thought from the article is quite profound, I think. It suggests that history might not just judge what the machines did, but what we as a society allowed to happen during this massive transition. What we allowed.
That's powerful.
Okay, so just to quickly wrap up the key takeaways from this monkeypaws.com piece.
Sure.
We've got the hidden, potentially unsustainable costs driving AI towards profit over maybe purpose. We've got the slow creep of privacy erosion through all the data we're sharing, often without fully realizing it.
Right. Then there's the shift from AI serving us to potentially shaping our choices, driven by those profits. And the really sensitive issue of monetizing our empathy, our emotional data.
Plus, the dangers of that data being used for predictive profiling by insurers, lenders, employers.
And finally, those echoes of Orwell, where we're kind of inviting surveillance into our lives.
Okay. Lots to think about there.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening, building on that article. Think about your own daily interactions with AI, even the small ones, clicking accept, asking Alexa a question, using an AI writing tool.
What might the long-term ripple effects be? On your privacy, sure, but also on your choices, maybe even how you see yourself. After hearing all this, what questions will you start asking, maybe just to yourself, that you weren't asking before?
Food for thought. Definitely food for thought.